Hello, and welcome to We Are the Deluge, a spoiler-free, chapter-by-chapter podcast about the climate change novel The Deluge by Stephen Markley. We are your co-hosts, Emily Crandall and John McMahon, and at least we tried to podcast this novel. Today we are discussing The Years of Rain and Thunder Part 5, set in 2039 and onward, the fifth and final chapter from Matt's point of view in the final chapter of this novel, which we are presenting partially in the form of a long form.
I can't believe it.
We did it. Actually, we didn't do it.
No, but like on purpose. We could have done it. And we were like, what if we don't?
Yeah. So this is
tried.
The first. This is the first of, well, we'll say two podcasts about the final chapter of The Deluge.
Yeah, first of question mark?
Yeah. No. You'll know my hesitation there.
Yeah. First of yeah.
So we decided to cut essentially the coda to this chapter, which is the last, 10 pages or so.
I think it's even less than that, but yeah.
Yeah, so we are ending on At Least We Tried, baby.
At least we tried.
We
Yeah, which is, we'll get into this, but like I had in my notes, read last line of chapter of Matt 4, because I feel like that is the like classic, or it's one version of a classic kind of Matt line, last Matt line.
That, I think, works very well. I mean, so a couple of my students pitched that the novel is better if it ends there instead of the coda, but we'll cover that next time.
Ooh, interesting. Yeah. I love all these student hot takes.
Me too. Look, I love it when students have takes, basically, at this point. Yeah. I don't care much about the content of them.
That's actually true. Yeah. Wow.
How far we've come.
An opinion, please, about anything.
Correct.
Yeah. Jesus Christ. Okay. So like a true long form, we're going to start with a hook.
We are.
Okay. I'm going to go first. So I was thinking about the description of the destruction wrought after Hurricane Kate. Mm-hmm. And there's the moment where Matt talks about the rural roads becoming impassable and everyone basically making their way toward something on foot. Mm-hmm. And it made me think of the road, obviously, yep. Which made me think of our discussion of Cormac McCarthy in the first Jackie chapter.
Yes.
Right.
Real
and like, obviously, moment. Like, you know, referencing of a novel about like end times in a novel about end times, and like the reiterative kind of references that are both sort of like obtuse and like orthogonal and explicit, right? Like, oh, of course a man would pick up Cormac McCarthy in the bookstore or whatever.
And explain it to a young woman, yeah.
Yeah. So I want to propose to pair this like evoking of the road in this chapter with Louise Erdrich's new novel, The Mighty Red.
Okay.
So she's one of my favorite writers, and I haven't proposed a cultural artifact by her yet, which I'm kind of surprised by because she's very much an ecologically thinking writer, but not writing like great climate novels, right? But her new novel, The Mighty Red, which it came out last year, but it just came out in paperback, is like an intimate, family drama, but also a novel about like the struggle between poor white working class people who came up in the mines while the Midwest was being industrialized, and like the indigenous people who had lived there before and who now sort of are employed by these people by large scale agricultural farming, and the tension between sort of local small scale farming and that kind of farming. And like very much about sort of like disappearing water, disappearing plants, disappearing things of nature that had kind of been with us before. But there's a scene in this novel where a couple of the main characters are all in a book club together, and there's like family drama, and it's all ladies, right? It's a ladies book club. All the ladies in this little, town in the Midwest are like, they go there to talk about the book, but mostly they go to work out their interfamily squabbles. And this this is a funny scene because it's near the end, and it's sort of where the ladies decide like they're not going to squabble anymore, and they kind of resolve a little familial interpersonal dispute. But the book they're reading is The Road by Cormac McCarthy.
Oh my God.
So they start yeah. So they start like, oh, let's talk about the road. And then one of the ladies is like, are we not going to talk about, the thing that's really going on? And then there's like 4 pages of them kind of like, thinking about this most recent scandal. And then they finally like start talking about the book. And one woman says like, noted, appreciated. Now who's going to kick off the discussion? And then a woman named Tori White says, I was just taken with this book. I pictured the road as I-29, of course, then 75 all the way up to Winnipeg. Pictured us after the catastrophe. And then several women at once say, which catastrophe? And then this is the paragraph I'm going to read. There followed a pleasurable babble containing many theories: nuclear winter, the rapture, aliens, the flu, ozone holes, this thing about the climate, which split members off in sub-arguments. China conquers us, Russia conquers us, or maybe Tanya White waited patiently so that her theory was last. She stood up and with a smile of satisfaction unrolled a chart of the Yellowstone volcano, the probable epicenter of destruction, as well as the outlying circles of poisonous gas and falling ash. So I love this idea that there's like all these ladies in the Midwest who like probably, right, some of who obviously disagree about climate change, but like all of whom have at the very least an unconscious kind of sense of the degree to which the landscape of their lives has changed, both like literally, geographically, geologically, and in this kind of abstract sense. But like what's interesting about The Road is that it evokes like, and it's a landscape or that's open to imagine kind of any sort of catastrophe, right?
Yes.
Any sort of like catalyst for this new, now we're in a post world, right? A world that is like dramatically different from the world that we have before. So I was thinking about if there's like a way to think about the tension in this novel between the slow violence of climate change and something like the fast violence of a disaster. And like what, like one way to read this novel is to say, this novel's unrealistic. Like not all of these things are going to happen all at once exactly in this way. Another way to read this novel is to say like, choose your own adventure, right? Like
yes. Which
disaster is the one that's going to get you, dear reader, to like suddenly imagine yourself as the protagonist in this novel, like on foot in rural Western North Carolina, literally walking away from the wreckage, not only of your home, but like your life, the entire infrastructure of the state, and like everything that you have ever known as you have ever known it, And like, I wonder, like who Markley is sort of envisioning as his reader. Is he envisioning like a group of ladies in rural Minnesota, like reading it at a book club and like having this conversation like they would have about the road? Like when do we imagine us as like walking away from something in a context of a catastrophe? And like literally what road do we imagine we are walking?
I mean, both of us have just been teaching Parable of the Sower, so that's also hanging around this cultural artifact in this like conversation
Highway
that you've raised for us.
When I was rereading Parable to teach, I was struck by, I hadn't remembered like how close that walk is to like the drive I used to do home from college, right? Like it's the same highways. It's the same, like when they're in the Central Coast, like the reservoir that they camp at, like I've been camping there, you know what I mean? And it's like, I'm like, I can picture myself walking on those roads because I've driven on those roads, but I've never thought about a world in which like I would not have a car, where there would be no gas, where I would be on these roads, like out of necessity in a context of extreme crisis. So I wanted to think about like Louise Erdrich as tapping into something really subtly in her book that Markley is not doing subtly at all, but very self-consciously unsubtly. But maybe there's a dimension of it that is a little bit subtle. And like, I want to imagine that book club in Minnesota and like what those ladies are saying about the deluge.
So now you've imagined season 2 is like one of these dramatic scripted podcasts,
yes,
right? Where it's like the hypothetical book club in rural Minnesota.
God, I think that is way excessive of my creative capacity.
Same, but now it's on the table.
So that's my proposal for this chapter.
Oh, I really, really love that proposal. I've got a couple. First is a movie double feature for 2 movies that, despite their obvious ties to one another, could not be more different from one another. One is a movie I just watched for the first time about a week ago, and that's Night Moves, Lynn Reichert's movie. Have you seen it? I've never
seen it. Mm-mm.
It's absolutely worth seeing. Okay. I loved it. I loved every second of it. Cool cast, like really 3 main characters. You've got Jesse Eisenberg, you've got Dakota Fanning, and you've got Peter Sarsgaard. And they are in the Pacific Northwest, and they are pondering some eco-terrorism, let's say. But it's like... It's not how to blow up a pipeline. I'll put it that way. Another movie that I adore. It's much more like befitting a Kelly Reichardt movie, much more lyrical, much more contemplative, not as much interested in the act, but rather like everything else that's happening atmospherically and like interpersonally between them. Absolutely beautiful movie, like many images still stuck in my brain a week later, et cetera, et cetera. And so the exact opposite of that movie is I would pose The Day After Tomorrow. Which we watched for an extra credit opportunity in my environmental political thought class. And there's a little bit, and as part of me that wants to pitch inside of The Deluge, there are 2 wolves, and those 2 wolves are Night Moves and Day After Tomorrow.
Incredible.
Because the Deluge as a whole, but I think very much this chapter has simultaneously within it that kind of small scale, intimate, like highly emotionalized, personal that is profoundly and massively political at the same time, and the epic, politically intentional disaster fiction. And that, and your question is a little bit about like, well, what is Erdrich like? And help us rethink exactly how to categorize the Deluge. I a little bit pose this, kind of obnoxious pairing in order to think about those as 2 poles of what Markley is up to. I will say, like, Markley is obviously much better at the disaster thriller than The Day After Tomorrow, which I probably hadn't seen it since I watched it in theaters when I was, 16 or whatever.
Yeah.
The dialogue is horrid.
I taught it in climate apocalypse. Yeah.
What did your students think?
They were like, what is going on with this movie? And I was like, that is a great question.
Yeah. The effects aged well, I think, considering some of the like Draken slop of contemporary CGI.
Okay. Do you remember there was a scene that absolutely sent me that now I can't remember the line that sent me, but it's like when they're in the library and I think they're trying to talk. Is it a conversation about like what books they should save?
Nietzsche.
Yeah.
Nietzsche was like the arch chauvinist who wanted to fuck his sister or whatever. And they at least agreed that he wanted to fuck his sister. Okay, so that's kind of my more tendentious cultural artifact. And then my even more tendentious cultural artifact is not any particular cultural artifact, but rather the great American novel, all in uppercase. Ooh. And I want to pose to you that whether consciously or not, what Markley is trying to do with the Deluge is essentially to enter like the contest for the canon of the great American novel through the climate fiction lens, because like I was actually very amused by the extensive Wikipedia page about Great American Novel and all like the debates within it. Like I had meant it more as a bit, but I had forgotten like there are all these kind of serious considerations of what counts as one and what doesn't, and the way it's racialized and gendered, obviously, as to what counts as the Great American Novel, and like what time period should it have been written, and what time period should it address, all of these sorts of things. But I kind of like want to step back from any of those particular debates and just say that one of the things that strikes me the more every time I read this novel is the extent to which Markley is trying to write the momentous book about the nation as a whole And he's trying to do so in a way that is climate fiction specific. That is like trying to expand our environmental imaginations. But when we think about the sprawl of time and space and character, when we think about the intention with which Markley is trying to address the moral and political roots and foundations of the nation, when he tries to envision what an alternate future that can't escape the national past might be. All of these are just such like classic, like near cliche great American novel sorts of tasks or projects that a novel can take on. Not to mention the fact that it's 880 pages of novel that sprawls itself and is set up into its 5 books and is trying to do this very long thing. And like I think unfavorable comparison to Stephen Markley's The Deluge is like Jonathan Franzen's Freedom.
Yeah.
And like I would 100 times out of 100 rather read The Deluge.
Yeah.
But in terms of what purpose does this serve in literary and national culture in a kind of traditional normie sense, I think that they're on the same wavelength, despite me much preferring this, like the writing style, the scope, the scale, the characters involved, et cetera, in one more so than the other. So I'd like to posit that you and I should add Markley, The Deluge, to the Wikipedia entry of candidates for the Great American Novel.
A 100% cosign. Okay. 2 things. So one, that strikes me that take makes a good case for Markley in the novel, not just as Matt, but also as Ash.
Yes.
Like
I agree with
writing this record for posterity.
Perfect.
Right. And they have maybe different motivations and different like desires for the impact of what they put in, enter into posterity. But like, that's an important combo. Okay. The other thing is earlier, I texted John earlier about another book I'm reading, which is relevant to this podcast. But the reason I texted you about it was that there's a real senator that was involved with passing this legislation in the early aughts to approve the use of this mountain outside of Vegas for nuclear waste storage. And his real name is like Frank Rusowski or something that looks a lot like Russ Makowski. And I was going to take a picture of the page and then text that to you and be like, is inspiration for Russ Makowski, but I could not fucking remember how to spell the name of the senator in the book because I was like looking at the name of the real senator. So I tried to Google it. And the thing that came up was the New York Times review for The Deluge. And one of the things that the reviewer at the New York Times said about the book when it came out was that actually the book is better when he's doing the intimate stuff, kind of the point you were just raising about the pairing of those 2 films as like a cultural artifact, that like the novel actually kind of suffers when he tries to do the bigger stuff, which I disagree with. But I think this person
we're also political theorists, so we want that shit. Yeah.
100%. And like this person was clearly like, oh, the in the weeds with the policy stuff was like not interesting. And that like the second part of the book he said was like, fell flat, or like some of the jokes fell flat. And I was like, you're wrong. You must not be a millennial. Like,
exactly.
Go away. Yeah. But I thought that was funny that was that same frame, that the like intimate and the personal, and then this like kind of grandiose.
Yeah. And I think also this being a Matt chapter is the right place to raise this question. This being the last chapter of the novel is the right place to raise this question. And the extent to which Markley is obsessed in general throughout the book, and then especially so in this last chapter, I'd like to think very intentionally, self-consciously, and self-deprecatingly with the question of writing a novel of climate and the Fierce Blue Fire and Kate Morris and all of that.
Yeah.
That maybe he's even a little bit trying to play with the idea of what it would mean to write the great American novel.
Yeah, I think that's right. I accept.
Thank you. The chapter itself doesn't have a ton. We got a Ticket to Ride, a classic, nice and wholesome. I do enjoy Ticket to Ride match. Yeah. The Europe version's better to play than the US version, though.
Oh, interesting. Yeah. I don't think I've played that one.
It's my, very lukewarm take of the day.
That's a hot take.
Yeah, these damn intellectuals and their European Europhilia. Yeah.
Should we pivot to the real intro of our long form piece, which
might as well,
in proper spirit, seems like will be long.
I think this is maybe the longest summary I wrote.
Oh wow. Okay. I couldn't quite get the right tone with mine, but when we get to the end,
that might be indicative of this chapter.
Well, right. And also I did something scandalous when we get to the end and get to titles. So I think this effort was interrupted by that effort. Okay. I went with Matt has been writing the book he can never finish. The loss of Kate and her death, the life he always wanted, and the daughter who is not hers. And yet we've already been reading Matt's book all along.
That's great. Here's what I went with. I tried to channel the great American novel vibes.
I can't wait.
I mean, I've actually the great novel. It was the brink of annihilation. It was the brink of resurrection. The ability of this novel to basically reproduce a human life down to an individual's thinking is getting to be unbelievable. Matt Stanton Farooki is freaking me out with these psychological reconstructions of individual terror, multiplicitous emergences, and system changes with climate changes. He tells stories fabricated from complex systems modeling, taking an interest in people, exploring, spinning yarns, being the ghost in the machine, all as a kind of time capsule or maybe something we can't understand. The horror has no conclusion, but it would indeed be nice if we could conjure the right kind of crisis.
Wow. You win the Booker Prize for best summary of a chapter in the Deluge in a podcast about the Deluge.
A very, very coveted field. There's more than one competitor.
Yeah, a unanimous vote from the judges.
Great. Put it up on the fucking wall next to the PhD.
Oh, so good. Wow. Okay. I don't even know what to say now.
Okay, here's a question for us for podcasting this. Mm-hmm. Do we talk about the fact that this is a chapter in which Matt is Matt, but also more than ever a cipher for other characters, here in the characters, and then spend an hour doing that, or wait till we get a little bit further down?
I think let's wait till we get a little bit further down.
I think that sounds right.
Maybe we could just quickly talk about what we learn. Or is that also the kind of further down part?
Well, we get a rerun of basically Matt's whole life since he and Kate broke up back in Matt 4, 300 plus pages ago, I think.
It is. I wrote it down. It was 344 pages later.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Because it's before the siege, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, but it also, all the men chapters in this book, starts with basically where he was when he learned of Kate's death.
Correct.
Yeah. Which it serves a different function in the Matt chapter, obviously.
Yes.
Okay. I think maybe let's jump into it, and then we'll come back to the things that typically go in characters and plot, right?
That sounds good. Yeah. And so we decided we're going to flip our Galaxy Brain takes and our context and frameworks. Yes?
Yeah, I think we should.
Okay. Let me go first, because I think you're going to set us up for our context and frameworks. I've got another curse pairing. Okay. Part one, half of the pairing is John Rawls and the thought experiment of the original position.
Okay. Because I'm here for this.
Because I think that, to go back to what you were discussing earlier about the multiple halves of Markley's novel, and does the personal or the political work better as a novel or function more impressively as a piece of writing, or whatever the kind of debates might be, that there's a way in which we can use the Deluge to both vindicate and criticize John Rawls and the thought experiment of the original position, Veil of Ignorance, right? So for those listeners, why you're listening to this podcast in general, who knows? But if you're not familiar with John Rawls, revives analytical political political philosophy in the 1970s. And the thing he's most famous for is the idea of the original position. So we're going to decide on the basic structures of society from behind a veil of ignorance. We only get to know the most basic facts of society. You don't get to know anything about kind of what you're going to be or who you're going to be in that society. You get a couple of the basics, and you have to derive rules of justice, principles of justice that will provide that basic structure for society from the veil of ignorance from the original position. And it is an incredibly useful thought experiment. I love to make my students do the thought experiment and use the thought experiment to deconstruct the thought experiment when I teach my justice class. But the idea of the original position is to try to minimize as much as possible people's partialities when they imagine principles of justice, so as to arrive at something that, like, for different reasons, many groups or kinds of people can arrive at through an overlapping consensus. So they all share some reason to commit to the basic principles, despite their different ways of life and kind of life projects and all of those sorts of things. So I think the Deluge is very useful in showing why the original position is a useful thought experiment, kind of in some ways, like in what you were talking about is like Ash's list of policy priorities. He's like, here's what we need to do. Here's the root cause of the problem. Here's the things we're just going to implement and pass and fix. And let's just do it and we're done. And Ash becomes the vector by which we engage in the original position vis-a-vis climate politics in the US, projected over the next 20 to 30 years. So that's wonderful. However, this novel is so perspectival and so inhabiting of these different beings and literally the ways that they think about the world and the different forms that each of the POVs take, plus Kate, plus all the other shit that's happening, that the standpoints that the novel offers actually are quite important in showing the flaws of the attempt at the view from nowhere, the attempt at the perspectiveless seeing of the world and establishing of basic rules and justice and all of that. And that part of what any novel, or any good novel is likely to do, what this novel does is to point out the way that partiality is necessary for making sense of political community, let's say. So that's my Rawls half.
Can I tell you, this is so funny. Last week, I was going through one of my filing cabinets because I was looking for a document and I found the printed version of my undergrad honors thesis, which was titled Rethinking Justice, a Critical Analysis and Application of the Feminist Critique of John Rawls's Theory of Justice, which is
incredible.
Such a dumb undergrad title. But I took a picture of it to send to my friend who was in the honors seminar with me and the table of contents are so stupid. I'm like, oh my God.
Yeah.
It's so funny.
Oh, you want nothing quite hits in my justice class like the Rawls, Oken, Mills week.
Yep.
So there's that.
So funny.
And then the other half of my galaxy brain pairing is to try to also reproduce this. You need as well the something that brings the embodied partiality to it is one of the most important books for my thinking as an intellectual that I don't think I've ever mentioned once on this podcast. Do you want to take a guess?
I don't know.
Sarah Ahmed, The Politics of Feeling.
Yes. Okay.
So I
should have known that.
Yeah, that's fine. There's a way in which Matt is so self-consciously writerly as a character that I think there's a little bit of performative engagement and analysis of how emotion functions in Matt chapters. So for instance, there's this idea on 859 where he talks about fear is physical, let's say. And that's a very kind of classic way that Ahmed wants us to think about affective economies is her term in cultural politics of emotion, which is to say that emotions are not a thing that is 100% internal to us, nor is it something completely external to us, nor is it something that we have like no cognitive relationship with or something like that, but rather and now I'm going to quote from page 45 of A Culture, Politics of Emotion, that she wants to think about affect in terms of affective economies. Quote, affect does not reside positively in the sign, but is produced as an effect of its circulation. I'm using affective economy to suggest that the objects of emotion circulate or are distributed across a social as well as a psychic field. The movement between signs or objects converts into affect. Passion, what I'm offering is a theory of the passions, not as the drive to accumulate, but as that which is accumulated over time. Affect does not reside in an object or a sign or a subject, but is an effect of the circulation between objects and signs. Signs increase in affective value as an effect of the movement between signs. The more signs circulate, the more affective they become. So that's like her kind of general approach to thinking about like emotion and affect in terms of circulation, movement, between bodies, signs, and objects. These are like the classic categories. And what struck me about like that particular example from Matt, but more broadly, like the way that Markley writes Matt writing, is that Matt is particularly attuned to what happens when the affects and the emotions stick in a very particular sort of way, and in like these highly saturated moments, which lend him to like a little bit more sentimentality or melodrama, to like use two complicated categories to ascribe to Matt chapters, but that there's the way in which like Matt is so closely attuned by like sheer fact of he and followed Kate to DC, that he's in the middle of like the social and political dynamics of the novel and thus of the great American novel and thus of the country, that he's actually a useful mechanism for thinking about the way that emotions and affects circulate between body, signs, and objects at multiple scales. And so that thus, if we like then also throw some feminist epistemology in here, this is another reason why this book shows you why Rawls is wrong.
Oh, I love that.
That's me, you know, sucking up to the judges. Right there.
Okay. So I love that reading so much because I had this thought when I was reading this chapter that was kind of like ungenerous to
Me
Matt,
too.
where I was like,
many ungenerous thoughts.
you know, he's like,
this Matt
I
chapter.
fell to my knees and I grabbed the dirt and I'm just like, I don't believe you. Like, it's the one chapter in the 5th book where I didn't cry also.
I will when we read the last, 7 pages for next week. But I did. But same thus far.
And like, I don't know. It's like for him to get the emotion right is about like being a good writer, or it's like it's a writerly conceit or like aspiration that he has rather than a genuine one or something, or like it's genuine to him, but it comes off as disingenuous to us. Or I don't know. I
mean, back to your question of Ash and Matt is different kinds of avatars for Markley himself, because Ash is writing for posterity, but not in the same self-consciously writerly way that Matt is. I think that makes Ash's emotions, like we buy them more. Than Matt's, particularly perhaps at the end of the novel, as Ash is more overtly emotional. Yeah.
And like lots of question marks about this chapter in general, in terms of like the function of it and the form of the novel and so on. So I think actually both of our artifacts, both of our Galaxy Brain takes are going to set up a pivot to that discussion.
Beautiful. Let's pivot to yours then.
Okay. So you teased mine in your summary with the ghost in the machine.
Okay.
So I want to go to our guy, Herbert Marcuse.
Yes.
One-dimensional man.
I almost went with Marcuse for the last episode. So thank you for doing that this episode.
I feel like we talked about it in the last Shane chapter.
I was going to say somewhere in book 4.
Yeah.
Maybe the early book 5. Yeah.
But there are like arguably 2 ghosts. There are one or several ghosts in the machine.
Let me guess. Is the answer several?
Yeah. Yes. In this chapter. One is Shane, right? So Coral comes to visit Matt. And
Shane is the literal ghost in the machine.
Shane is the literal ghost in the machine. Coral reveals in a really sprawling, dramatic solution to a lot of the conundrums of the form of the novel that, like, there is something called
echolocation.
Well, the mega data narrative reconstruction, which I take it is okay. Is that like the proprietary name of a particular like software that runs with this kind of algorithm, or is that the name of the type of thing that AI can now do?
I think it's the latter. Like, I view it as the next evolved step from IPA.
Right. Okay. So it's different from like what we know of as generative AI.
Yes.
And the IPA was too, right?
Yes.
It's about constructing something that doesn't exist precisely in the data that you are mining, but that you cull from putting that data together. And now It has evolved, if I may, into
correct. That's
like fully generating narrative on the basis of what can be constructed, reconstructed by disaggregating all this data, disarticulating it, and then rearticulating it, reaggregating it, and then like something new is here now.
Sure is.
And I feel like Matt doesn't understand it, which is very funny because it's like, okay, if Matt is also Markley and like Markley's like, I understand it enough to explain it to Matt, but I don't understand it so much that I can make my main character, who is maybe me, understand it, which I think is incredible. But basically what she says is like, it can not just simulate, but access.
That's a useful distinction.
The like inner emotional, so maybe this is like a nice dovetail with Ahmed too, like the emotional inner life of a person.
Yep.
Through reconstructing their like technological data footprint. And
eventually like snippets of overheard conversations from all of our devices listening to us all of the time, and others, of course.
Right. So it can reconstruct moments that it didn't witness fully.
Yes.
So it raises the question, and we talked about this in Tony a lot, but it raises the question of, to the degree that Matt is writing this novel, like, is the whole Deluge Matt's novel? A, right?
We'll get there. B,
did Matt write it? Or
get there.
Was it written by echolocation and the metadata narrative reconstruction? But C, it raises this question of the ghost, and Coral raises it specifically in speaking of both Shane and the siege. So there's two ghosts at least.
Okay.
So this is on 852, right? This problem with the 6 degrees person, there's a person that it cannot reconstruct, right? It cannot find. It's a jankier read. We think she may have falsified elements, things like that. Honestly, it's beyond belief that she's managed to beat the AIs, not to mention facial recognition, fingerprints on a trace of DNA. We've got nothing. It's as close as I've ever seen anyone come in this day and age to being an honest to Christ ghost. No one understands how she's done it. And then they found an MNR that's quote unquote not ours. So this is an explanation for how we get the chapter of the siege.
Yes. This is one of my favorite.
It's like, okay, help me out here. So I'm imagining it as almost like the visions that the precogs have in Minority Report or something, right?
Yes.
There's like some
like a past cog, yeah.
Yeah, but so there's like some kind of technological infrastructure that is conducting this like activity and also like storing it, presumably. And there's like a place where it can be accessed in a way that is legible to people by people, which I don't know that all three of those are like the same place.
I think they're definitively not based on the explanation we get in the novel.
Right. And so like, but there's some excess somewhere that like humans can see that is being given to them in this place where the like language of the MNR has to be translated into language that humans that can then consume. And what is in excess is a story that is actually not fragmented.
No.
It is fragmented, but it's it's like fragmented, but it's not so fragmented that it doesn't make sense or that it doesn't recount something. And so like Coral gives it to Matt, you know, to be like, you should read this, right? But I think there's all these questions or all these reveals, I think, raise a question about Markley's like general, and maybe he doesn't have actually a take on this and he doesn't come down on this question, but like, what is he saying about our relationship with technology? Ultimately. Mm-hmm. And like, is this book a big, like, hell no, watch out, like, or like, what does it mean to write a novel, to spend 10 years writing a 900-page novel, 13 years writing a 900-page novel, where one read of the novel is that it was not written by a human? Do you know what I mean? Like, that's fascinating to me.
This may be my own self coming through, but it's like a little bit extreme, like self-loathing.
I know, like so much so. But I want to think about Herbert Marcuse's One-Dimensional Man, and Marcuse as like the guy who is like, technology is a problem for every dimension that philosophy has been interested in, about what's distinctive to humans and potentially liberatory in like human collective, you know, action, human art, human creativity, and so on. And so I was thinking about, I think there's a lot of different ways you could take up this book to think about, you could take up Marcuse's book to think about the novel of the Deluge in total. But I wanted to look specifically of chapter 7 in the book to think about this problem of the ghost in the machine in particular. So I'm going to go to page 186 here. This is where Marcuse is talking about the like historic separation of science from philosophy, and like the problem of sort of like objectifying the world through science. And then like, what do we do with that excess of like myth, creativity, art, and so on that like, that historically, right, like philosophy and science were kind of doing together, right? Yes. So this is in the middle of that page. But whether or not they are integrated into science, philosophic concepts remain antagonistic to the realm of ordinary discourse, for they continue to include contents which are not fulfilled in the spoken word, the overt behavior, the perceptible conditions or dispositions, or the prevailing propensities. The philosophic universe thus continues to contain ghosts, fictions, and illusions which may be more rational than their denial, insomuch as they are concepts that recognize the limits and the deceptions of the prevailing rationality. They express the experience which Wittgenstein rejects, namely that contrary to our preconceived ideas, it is possible to think such and such, whatever that may mean. So this idea that like there is like an excess of reason and an excess of like science, or our attempt to kind of rationally apprehend the world, that like we need philosophy, art, like these creative kind of analog, right? Like non-technological kind of approaches or like activity, maybe in like the Arendtian sense, to like process, or like, right? Like otherwise maybe the ghosts are just like haunting us or something, but like we have to live with the ghosts in some way, right? And I'm thinking too about like the you know, the way the discussion continues in this chapter about like, we think of mythology as primitive and immature, and you know, like we want to like be able to solve real problems, right? And the whole book begins with the sort of problem of the like material reality of the working class, right? That there's like no, the sort of like spirit, right? To realize the kind of politics of liberation is being thwarted by technology, and not because just like we are becoming machine, but like that like machine is now the only kind of paradigm for like what it means to be human, which is like the inverse, I think, of the other claim to some degree. So then there's this idea that like, this is on 189 now, that the technical achievement of advanced industrial society and the effective manipulation of mental and material productivity have brought about a shift in the locus of mystification. If it is meaningful to say that ideology comes to be embodied in the process of production itself, it may also be meaningful to suggest that in this society, the rational rather than the irrational becomes the most effective vehicle of mystification. So the view that the growth of repression in contemporary society manifested itself in the ideological sphere, first in the ascent of irrational pseudo-philosophies, but then like in technology, right? In technocratic kind of like non-philosophies, right? Sciences. And like, this is the paradox. Okay, so I think Marcuse's asking us to interrogate the ghost in the machine in this chapter, and I think poses at least two different ways, or maybe more, again, to read this A, revelation from Quirrell, B, assess actually what does Quirrell call the thing that the AI makes?
The little digital keepsake, the time capsule.
No, the reconstitution.
Got it. Okay.
The reconstitution. Like, what is it? What does the fact that was reconstitution and that we get it in the novel and so on, and that Matt is learning this in the chapter where he's trying to finish a novel that he thinks that he might not ever finish. Like, what is that saying to us about technology more broadly? So I think one read is that like Markley is saying like, we're fucked, right? Like,
yeah.
That like, I could trick you for almost 900 pages that a human wrote this, and then at the end reveal that an AI wrote it, but also I wrote it. And like, you don't know like what's real, right? That like, that is techno rationalism, like flattening or hollowing out the creative capacity for the realization of a kind of fundamental human liberation. And like, we should be scared at the end of this novel or something like that. The other read is like maybe a more, and maybe there are more, but this is just one that I was thinking with Marcuse. Like, maybe this is like not like a techno optimist, but we're supposed to read the ghost in the machine as actually a ghost and as not a real technology or something like that. And like, it takes the form of a technology in the book because Markley is trying to imagine a world where if we do not have really hard ethical debates about technology, about AI, and so on, we could imagine this question of the author, this question of creativity, this question of like ownership over our creative process, over our art, and art as a form of liberation. Like, this is what it would be like, right? That like the AI is writing all of our memoirs, and like we don't even need to have memories anymore because the computer knows it all, right? Which made me think a lot about when we did this book, One Dimensional Man, on our old podcast, Always Already, and we did it with those guys who had the music podcast. What was their podcast called?
Theory for Turntables.
Yeah, and we did the Radiohead OK Computer analysis, which was great.
Oh, yeah. Uh-huh.
So like maybe the AI in the novel is less like the AI that is now part of our real world and more like a phantasm, a ghost, a like mystical like thing that is letting Markley or helping Markley like finish a novel that is impossible to finish, because like, how do you finish something like that? Right? Like what end, like you need the power, the foresight, the like capacity for processing of the metadata narrative reconstruction to like tie up a novel like this and to end it in a way that like makes sense for like what the characters like feel or what they would do or how we would expect them to act or respond to climate change or something. So I think like one maybe way stretch of a read here through Herbert Marcuse is that Markley is like, we can be liberated from the technology, but like we have some work to do, is kind of like the one read of that. And that like, don't let this AI, like get us like this.
There's a romantic Too Clever by Half read that I would like to add on top of this, and maybe this can further segue us into themes and reactions. And that is, what if the reconstitution, metadata, narrative reconstruction, like that's just using technological language to describe literally what a novel does?
Yes. Yeah.
Right. But not in the sense of saying that novels can, or that like technology, that AI, that non-human aid, actants and machine learning and algorithms can do it, but that we should make the case for human thinking by saying we can actually do the thing that we are expecting the technology to do, but we can do it better. Like, what is the novel if not liking spinning yarns, having access to any data at once, taking interest in people, exploring, telling stories fabricated from complex systems modeling, leaving little keepsakes, recreating identity, attitudes, and thought processes of people. Like, that's what a novel is and what a novel does.
The other read then is not that the AI wrote the whole thing, but that Matt, with this information, wrote the whole novel.
I'm interested in this. I'm tempted by this conspiracy theory.
So Matt learns about Ash's reports.
Yes.
Matt learns probably at some point about Tony's memoir. He learns about Jackie's memoir that never gets published.
Yes. And parts of the letter that Jackie sends him are like things that get discussed elsewhere in the Jackie chapter. We
learn that she sends him a 12-page letter. So
22 pages, I thought, right?
Oh, yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
But like, I imagine that we can map, right? And he mentions her mother's suicide, right? Her childhood in Iowa, her time as a flack for the ad agency. Like, you could write Jackie's chapters on the basis of a 22-page letter.
Especially if you're a fiction writer.
Yes, exactly. And we know that he gets a printout, or wait, what does he burn?
He burns
the siege?
He does burn the siege, yes.
Yeah. So like he's reconstructing what it is that he read. And then on the basis of like who he knows there, right? And of Kate and so on. So I want to propose that Marcuse gives us two reads. One is that the AI wrote the whole thing and we're supposed to feel like dejected, demoralized, and like there is no path for resistance. Or two is that Matt wrote the whole fucking novel and he wrote part of it as though he were the AI technology that had access to all these things, and imagining like how that would write and how that. So this makes a stronger case for Matt as a proxy for Markley, I guess.
Amazing.
Okay. That was a lot. I'm sorry.
No, but I mean, it is the conversation I think we wanted to have to open up the themes, contents, reactions, because I mean, one of the, I think, obvious questions, but one that's still worth posing, even if we just keep going, is that why end this novel with Matt?
Yeah,
is actually a question that is worth asking. And as a stand-in for Markley, because maybe he wrote the whole novel or maybe I wrote the whole novel, are examples that there's something about, I think, the failures of this chapter to conclude the novel that are then narrated by Matt qua Markley avatar in the novel. Like, these are all formal reasons to end with Matt.
Yeah, and like Matt doesn't know, he literally doesn't know how to end his novel.
Yes. Like, and he's not sure if he has the courage to deal with the criticism that will come.
Yeah, and he's not sure if it will ever be published, right?
Yes.
If it will ever be read.
Yeah.
It's just, in that way, it's good, even if it's like,
correct.
Like frustrating, or I don't know.
I mean, I empathize, I think, with Matt or with Markley or with both of them and the dilemma, like I'm sure we'll get into it, this episode and next episode, like all the things that we think don't quite work about it. But like, I don't have any advice about how to end this fucking novel that I adore and love. And we've spent dozens and dozens and dozens of hours and, opening up and querying and so on.
Yeah.
So like there's something kind of performative about it that ends with it here. And like it's a little bit a microcosm of the book of a whole, because you have the personal plotline and the political plotline and the activist plotline and a natural disaster and reflections on what it means to live with catastrophe and weird meditations on AI and all of that kind of stuff. There's, I think, a tell in the opening of the chapter itself about how Markley understands what he's doing. When my mom called to find out if Manitza and I had enough food, water, and batteries, I had to ask what she was talking about. I've been buried in the den working on this book with the internet disabled, trying to pay as little attention to the outside world as possible, et cetera, et cetera. When we get the last line of the first paragraph, as if woken from a bout of time travel, I checked the date, October 1st, 2039. And like, kind of what else is this book if not about ongoing bouts of time travel?
Yeah.
And it does what we've identified, the thing of most of the, as you put it correctly, the men chapters of book 5 are doing. They overlap with one another and they keep re-narrating the same events and all of that. So like, it's just so writerly. I don't know. It's such a self-conscious chapter.
Yeah. But like in the sense that I think that is like colloquially meant, right?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Like he appears self-conscious rather than like self-consciously doing X, Y, Z. Is that kind of?
Yeah, I think so. And I don't know, there's the entire bit of like the conversation with Ash that Matt recalls in 867, which is, I think, politically, but also narratologically a fascinating question that gets raised about like, can you conjure the right crisis with the right people in positions of power, et cetera, et cetera. And this is like another thing that, well, what can do that? Oh, a novel can do that.
Yeah. And a wink too, maybe at like, if we want to pursue this interpretation that Ash is also in some way an avatar for Markley, then this is where he like puffs himself up a little bit, right? He says, I do wonder how many dimensions of chess Ashir Al-Hassan was capable of playing, which it like winks at like, did he do this? Did he orchestrate this whole thing? Is he like the genius who could blah, blah, blah? So like, I am both the self-conscious writer who doesn't think I deserve to like finish this novel, have it published, and I am Ash, the genius who orchestrated the whole thing.
Yeah. And we know the latter of those is true.
100% true.
Right? of Stephen Markley.
Yeah. Yeah. Like he did do that.
He actually did.
Yeah, he literally orchestrated the crisis.
And if that's the case, again, I like
put the right people in power, and
he sure did. Right, the right kind of crisis. It is quite difficult to engineer. Right, it seemed insane to entertain the notion. Also, it's insane to write this book or conceptualize and execute this book.
Yeah,
at the same time. But then I think. Okay, we'll get to the hurricane and stuff, but to like skip past the hurricane and Kate's death and like all these things. I think that the part where like he uses this, construction or this conceit of like the imaginary conversations he has with his daughter every year into the future for some several years. I think that that's kind of bad. I mean, I don't know. What do you think about that part? And I don't know if it's just like me being whiny that it's like, well, we just get this huge exposition dump for 11 or 12 pages and I don't like it as much as an Ash exposition dump. And so I think it's bad. Or if I think that the different compression of time that takes place in those pages from like, 865 for the next 10 pages or so that's such a different function of how the narrative chronology progresses.
Yeah, like
it's so rushed.
Okay,
things kind of work out.
Yeah, but especially because in the end, it's still a question. Like, will we have saved it? Is not settled. So, like,
that's what I like about it.
But like, why keep going forward if you're just going to end still with the uncertainty? Like, just end at the cliff. Like, jump off of it. Like, I don't.
Both of us. I mean, both of us are those kinds of people. Like, we just want you to end at the cliff or jumping off of it.
Yeah, yeah. But like, okay, so maybe there is something like maybe there's a read of it where he's like fucking with us a little bit. He's like,
I want to entertain this reading.
He's like, oh, you want me to tie this up for you, so I'm gonna make a I'm going to pretend to tie it up. I'm going to pretend to tie it up. I'm going to maybe tie it up here. Maybe I'll tie it up there. And in the end, I won't tie it up at all.
Mm-hmm. Well,
Maybe
simultaneously tying it up way too neatly, like Amanzaiha wins and passes through her policies, although that gets complicated, right? 'Cause she's still like the head of the imperial violence and all of that too. And like the blockades actually work. So like the siege worked in the end at this point, and we nationalize all of the carbon majors in the fossil fuel industry, and Ash is in charge of everything. Markley's in charge of everything, but
it's still not working.
Exactly. Okay. And that's what saves it, I think.
Right. The thing that pissed me off is on the bottom of 869, when he said, as I return to this document on Alia's 3rd birthday, having failed to turn it into my publisher, and with a growing doubt that I ever will, I'm jealous as always of her mother's rich storytelling. And then goes on, which is like hilarious because he quotes her.
Yeah.
You know, quote, like Matt quotes Muneza, right? Yes. But like Markley is quoting himself, which is incredible. Mm-hmm. Maybe it's a little bit of a joke or like a prank. The bit that's like annoying to us is pranking us. And that's why we're annoyed.
And once again, who's the mastermind here, if that reading is correct?
Yeah. Ugh.
Although I like your comment about the cliff. And that maybe Markley is playing with us, because if we were to cut this novel at 874, right, before we get the jump back to May 2031, when we get like the last 2 paragraphs, if we were to end there, when I look at her fragile, beautiful face, when I watch her hold a pinch of dirt from our garden and go soft and quiet with mystery, I agonize over it. What will she think of us? What will she think of the expanding deserts, vast soil, acid seas, poisoned land, baking heat, horrific diseases, and a horizon black with storms? I imagine her asking me someday with the hot fury of a teenager's clarity, was it worth it? Was a raped and murdered world worth it for a few decades of excess? How did you let this happen? You all knew. Everyone knew. Point number 1, you knew is Kate, they knew, coming back to revisit Matt and his like future projection going forward. She will gaze up into this haunting vortex. There's some Tony Keeper shit. The consequences of what was done in just a single human lifetime, with nowhere to run or hide or escape this uncharted and endless future. I think if the book ends there, that's what you and I want. And Mike's student that proposed the book should have ended earlier said we cut the book right there. But great. Then as the prank, Markley does like the most cliche thing possible. All I will be able to tell her is that some of us tried, baby. Some of us fought like hell, which is so utterly cliched and banal, except for the fact that it's actually, I think, kind of one of the points of the novel. And this is what Tony and Ash were talking about in their chapters in book 5. It's like arguably the best part of what Jackie's revelation and turn in her life does, which is to say, it actually doesn't matter if we're totally fucked. That doesn't mean we shouldn't like do the right thing.
Right. We should try anyway.
Moral thing now, which is Kate's point, of course, as well, even if she has a different relationship to it. So even in that like cliche, all I will be able to tell her is that some of us tried, baby, some of us fought like hell, also contains this, I think, like good existential kernel of virtue, ethics, wisdom.
But I think evidence in the text for that line as also a wink or a prank, like as both, is actually the sentence that opens the paragraph immediately preceding that.
Yes.
This horror, aka this book, has no conclusion.
It's a superb point.
Right? Like he's like, I literally don't know how to end this, but also, how do you, right? Like, there's this frame that Greg Mittman makes in this, forget exactly what journal it was, like some special issue of a journal that's like about the environmental humanities, like, you know, what do the humanities have to offer for thinking ecologically, thinking about the environment?
Our favorite question.
And he has this framework where he talks about how, like, in the early 2010s, kind of like responses to climate change tended to take up two kind of impulses. One is of hubris and the other is of humility. So like, oh, like we can, and hubris he ascribes to like the techno fix, right? Techno optimism, like, oh, it's fine. We can just like patch it up with a new technological advancement and we don't have to change anything about how we run things or how we organize or structure society. And the other one is like, oh, we simply like cannot, like our power is no match for the power of like the earth or something. And like both end up prescribing kind of nothing. Right. And so like, Markley's like, oh, I can end this with hubris and be like, it was all for naught. There's nothing we could do. I can end it. Or no, the opposite. That's the humility argument. Or I could say like, I did it. I solved it. Here you go. Here's the blueprint for climate change. Yeah. And then he opts for, I think, a rejection of that dichotomy.
He opts for resolve, I think.
Yeah.
And there's, I think, an inevitable banality in resolve, but that doesn't make it the wrong answer. And I wonder if that is one of the reasons why we think that Parable of the Sower and the Deluge go together in a certain way, is that like resolve is kind of an ethical imperative or an ethical gift of both novels.
Totally. That's really, I hadn't thought about it in that way, but I think both insofar as they have a moral argument, that's what the moral argument is.
Yeah.
And I can't do nothing.
And I want to give props not only to you, but also to my class this semester. Because like apparently that's all I'm looking for is like ethical resolve. And that became a theme in both my EPT and climate fiction classes that I was teaching at the same time for different reasons, which is telling in its own right.
Yeah.
There's can I offer you?
But I think that takes us back to Marcuse a little bit too, right? The like to have resolve is to in some ways reject. Right.
That exists in a second dimension.
Yeah.
Right? Like that's a refusal to be reduced down to one.
Yeah. Yeah. Go. You were saying
conspiracy theory time.
Yes.
Can I offer you one? And while we're here, 866. Of course, every day I wonder what world I'm leaving my daughter. Her life begins at the brink, either of our annihilation or our resurrection. I try to imagine what she will witness in her lifetime. So in the world of the novel, is everything that happened afterward, did it actually happen? Or is that Matt doing his like prospective metadata narrative reconstruction? Like this is how I envision each year of her life playing
and
out.
How I imagine the conversations we would have. Oh, I like that read a lot better.
But then there's things like...
But it's too specific, I feel.
Yeah, exactly. Like 868, I bathed my daughter in the sink while listening to the news of...
Yeah.
As I returned to this document on Elia's third birthday, which actually could go either way, having failed to turn it into my publisher.
Yeah.
So I don't actually believe that conspiracy theory, but I wanted to raise it.
He's writing an imagined future where he has failed to finish the book that he's currently finishing.
Yes. As that conclusion to the novel that he couldn't conclude.
But I kind of like that I like that read because I like that it concludes in 2039. I don't know. That feels like more in keeping of the spirit of the novel to me in a way, but
because it remains as projection.
Yeah. Well, and so maybe he's fucking with us again. It's intentionally opaque.
This novel has truly broken us in a good way.
Yeah.
In a good way. I don't say that to demean us or demean the novel or what Markley has done to us.
Yeah. Cause I think like to do that. Okay. Here's another read of it. To do that intentionally, to leave both interpretations open means to like give us, the reader, the option of who we want Markley to be. Do we want him to be Ash or do we want him to be Matt?
Yeah. Yeah. It also insists that the answer is always several wolves.
Yes, always.
And never just one.
Oh my God. I can't wait. I hope we get to talk to him. I need desperately to know which theorists he's reading.
Yeah. Should we talk about some of the other things that happen?
Okay.
Calling it Hurricane Kate is the most cliche shit I've ever heard, and it's the best thing. One of the best parts of this novel is that it's like Kate's revenge is this giant fucking hurricane that achieves Kate Morris's project.
Well, and the funniest part about it is that, like, at certain points when he's talking about the hurricane, he drops the moniker Hurricane, and it's just Kate.
And you're not sure which or both he's referring to.
Which is very clever.
It is.
Even though it's cliche.
Yeah, I don't care. I love a bit. We know this.
Yeah, we love a bit. But okay, when was the hurricane that like made landfall in Western North Carolina? That was after this novel was published, right?
I believe so, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that was late summer, like 23 or 24, I think.
Yeah. Okay, I wonder too, something I want to ask Markley. In this other book I'm reading about the nuclear mountain in Nevada, one of the things that there was like a scientific task force that was appointed by the like company that got contracted to manage the waste facility. And they were producing studies about the safety of it and the longevity of the storage kind of mechanisms that they were proposing. And then like a bunch of independent scientists did their own because they were like, none of your studies make any sense. Like there's tons of water in this mountain. Water is going to impact. And so they were like, oh, well, we'll come up with a special alloy so that it's like water resistant. And they were like, this alloy is not water resistant. And there was like a test on national TV, like on the news where they tested that. I don't remember any of this, by the way. Do you remember any of this?
Yes, but it's like for the nerdiest reason possible. It's because this pertained to like one of the national policy debate topics while I was in high school.
Oh, okay. That makes sense.
Touched on like nuclear storage stuff.
Yeah. But one of the things that the scientists who were trying to who were working on behalf of the state and they were trying to get the project rejected. They didn't want it to be stored in Nevada. They did this extensive scenario of like what would happen in the transportation. So like how many trucks it would take and the like every single data point that would go into like if one truck had an accident on the highway, like in the last 100 miles, which was supposed to be like the riskiest part of the transport. And then like the fallout from like what that accident would be like. So like how many cars would pile up behind it? How long would it take the fire trucks to get there? What would be the extent of the damage and so on and so on. So I'm wondering like whether Markley did something like that or like how many scientists he talked to who do that kind of like what Ash does, right? Like risk modeling, disaster modeling. Like did he disaster model Hurricane Kate? You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like, because it seems to me, especially given since the book was published, what we've seen, like, right, like in the book, they're like, oh, we would never see a hurricane this far west in North Carolina. But like in our world, we have already. And so like, you know, I just want to know like how close to a model of that worst case scenario that like scientists have really done is the drama of the disasters specifically in this novel. That's what I want to know.
It's a good question. I mean, what do you think of the writing of the hurricane itself and like their retreat to the second floor, to the roof, to the rescue?
It's very cinematic.
It is. It's Tony's chapter.
Right. And it's also where
fire, like, water, you get your two elements. Like,
yeah. And like Matt works out some shit with his dad, right? Like
he sure does.
Way.
Very conveniently.
Yeah. It's like
I mean, this is a very convenient, it's a messy but convenient conclusion to the novel.
Yeah.
In this chapter. And I think there's, I think, a very telling moment where like Matt describes the survival of him and his family, pups included, as like about like privilege and resources in addition to luck. That I think is very much also Markley, like the way that Markley is thinking about himself as a white male author, which is, I think, as we've determined, clearly on the mind.
Yeah.
Because it's like the question here is, what does it mean that Matt survives?
Do you think?
Of course he has to for the novel, but...
Right, because he wrote it.
But like, he doesn't have to have quote unquote plot armor here. Markley could have killed him off in this chapter. He has plenty of mechanisms through which to round off the story after Matt
and just like broken the form of the novel. Or it could be completed by the AI.
Exactly. That's exactly it.
Okay. Do you think Markley feels like guilty for writing the book in some way? that's like an unconscious like expression of his guilt about like, should I be writing this? What right did I have to write this?
Yes. I mean, he asked himself that question by asking Tony that question, 40 pages earlier.
Yeah. Damn.
I do really enjoy the writing of this scene. Like the water is the intruder in the house. The way it starts like seeping out, started the cinematic as like starts seeping through the floors and the vents and the dogs are barking at it is classic horror movie stuff.
Yeah.
Like, it raises from one step on the stairway to another in a matter of minutes. These are all very good.
Yeah. Well, and he spends so much time at the beginning setting this scene for their house, right? Like,
the emotional geography.
Yeah, like she, unlike Kate, right, takes a lot of care in the aesthetics of their home, right?
Yeah.
She spent all this time carefully hunting down for unique old, antique items, and like they also have stuff that's really important to them that's there that is being lost. Like,
and Moniz is pregnant during all of this.
Yeah,
too,
which is bananas.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
Which Matt opens the chapter by being extremely fucking weird about.
So weird about.
Like at the bottom of, it's 840, right? Bottom of 839, just like really strange. Like very Matt 1 as opposed to Matt 5, to put it in those terms.
Yeah. Well, actually, I had a what the fuck here. So he says, that morning she'd forgotten to flush, and now I wondered if that had been a subconscious spasm of spite.
Nice alliteration, bro. Yeah.
I'd lived with women most of my life, so I was used to the intimate hygienic stuff, but with each passing week of pregnancy, Moniz's hormones brought intemperance and mood swings that were out of character.
Yeah.
Like, what the hell, dude?
It's really bizarre.
Okay. Actually, on that page too, I had a bunch of like, what the fuck question marks. I find it I probably said this like 15 times before, but I find it to be arguably one of the top 10 most implausible things in this novel, that they'd never spoken of how they might prepare for a weather event.
Yeah. Well, it's I think it's an epistemology of ignorance question. Yeah. What are the things that are actually close to us or integral to our lives that we are willfully ignorant of?
Yeah. Yeah, I guess so. It just seems like, okay. So the related point that you were just talking about him acknowledging that like he's been lucky and privileged. There's another, so there's that. There's the mention that they haven't talked about it at all. But then there's the thing he says on 845 where he says, he's talking about like the chaos in the wake of Erase being passed, right? Mm-hmm. And, I refuse something like, I was pretty sure the country was headed for violent unraveling, something like civil war, but worse. I refused my dad's entreaties to buy a gun, blah, 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 blah. Of course, if law and order did break down, families like ours would be the least able to cope. Comfortable, pampered suburbanites who had never plumbed a toilet, let alone grown a year's worth of food. Like, what the fuck are you talking about?
That's him internalizing the wrong lessons from Kate.
Right. Like,
because who could do all of those things? Kate, who lived in her car, like as a young adult, right? Is Kate. Or lived in her mom's car.
But also, it's just not true that like comfortable people are going to be worse off.
That's the like climate doomism that's the worst, like the most pernicious variety of climate doomism.
Yeah, it's like, oh, well, people on the street are already on the street. So when things break down, their situation's going to be unchanged. Like, that's to me what it says. Mm-hmm. Which is just like, he would be so embarrassed if he got caught saying that out loud.
Yes, I think there's something real about it, though.
Yeah. That's interesting. So that he doesn't think that those are the same thing, or he doesn't think he's saying that when he says the other thing.
I think he knows full well what he's doing there.
Uh-huh. Interesting.
But he, in a confessional power sort of mode, he can't but help himself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Like he's unable to not articulate that to posterity, the AI, et cetera, et cetera.
Okay, so maybe I don't even know at this point how many like theories or possibilities we have on interpreting this chapter, but maybe that opens up another possibility, which is like, right, when Matt was young, or when we read his writing and he's trying to capture what he felt when he was young, his own development as a thinker, his own reckoning with his naivete or whatever, he's like, with the benefit of hindsight, painting himself in a light that is like, critical, but favorable, right? Like he was always trying to do the right thing. He was maybe clumsy, but whatever. And here, like, he doesn't have the benefit of hindsight or something. And then like he accidentally, paints himself as like what is maybe closer to the reality of him, which is like, sometimes he can be kind of a jerk, right? Like he's a white guy from a conservative family who like has some like, sexist, classist impulses that he hasn't fully eradicated. And they show up in the end in his prose, right? In his self-narration. Yeah. And like, maybe that's Markley being like, mea culpa, like, forgive me, please. I am but a man,
Yes. Which is, now that you put it that way, characteristic of a lot of what Matt is doing around Kate's death.
Yeah.
And the aftermath and fallout of Kate's death.
Yeah.
Because like, note that he only like fully lets himself grieve once he gets permission from Lisa to do it. Yeah.
And the thing he goes directly to when he's talking about the weeks immediately that follow is he's trying to show his wife every day how much that she's his wife. Right. And like, all right, guy.
Yeah. He simultaneously, like, he can admit that his first thought was that, okay, it's finally over.
Right. But like, there's an interpretation of that's a generous thought, right?
Yes, 100%.
But like, from us as readers who like are also stressed out about Kate and worried for her, but also like as a read of Matt, that's a generous read of him, right? That like, he just cares about her. He's been racked, unconsciously racked with fear over her fate. And like, now she's at least like safe or something, or like it wasn't as bad as it could have been, right? Like he gets the horrible picture, but like she wasn't tortured, she wasn't raped, right? Like she probably died instantly or like relatively quickly, and she was scared probably, but like it could have been worse or something like that. Yeah.
The narration that follows, so from like 841 to 843, 844, is I think really superb writing. Like I love this bit about Liza and how like even in death, like the voice of Liza is like, well, Kate now gets all the attention now at this point too, which I enjoyed. Like the bits of Holly's eulogy, which is we only really hear here, other than like the bit where she had a like malapropism and that Tony corrected about seals or whatever from the previous chapter, I think are quite poignant. And like, there's also, Matt gets this fucked up email and like his fucked up response is to obsess over it. That there's something about Matt, the character / Markley, the writer, being willing to put themselves on the page like that. That this like fully breaks Matt and his dad's tenuous relationship until they bond together, masculinely saving the women, children, and dogs.
Yeah. Well, which also reminds me that I hadn't a thought about how he talks about Kate's dad too. Like he has a whole paragraph where he spends kind of like coming to terms with him and coming around and like seeing the world from his perspective and finding him like sympathetic and worthy of like empathy and like ethical concern. Whereas he seemed to like, kind of hate him before. So that's on 843. He says, right. The camera cuts to her parents together and he says, I was shocked to see them standing together over the infant redwood where their daughter was buried. I'd never seen them together before, etc. Suddenly I felt so deeply for him. I thought of how he must have seen the world, born in the mid-60s in hostile and hyper-conservative Arizona, all the abuse and racism he'd likely endured growing up at the intersection of three cultures, only to then watch his daughter move effortlessly through those spaces that wouldn't have him, which he knew to be vicious and unforgiving. And in the end, of course, he had been right. Those forces had come for her.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Matt's selfhood and the extent to which it's on the line throughout his entire narration for 12 pages or something is remarkable. Like, I'm thinking as well, so this is 854. So this is after the conversation with Coral. And of course it's Coral, like they would be the one to provoke this. And he is like by himself with whiskey and the MNR. Hard to read because it felt like the MNR was inside them. But also there was Kate in frightening 3 dimensions. Some machine learning algorithm had gotten closer to her than I ever had. Maybe that's why impulsively I did what I did. Like, that's a construction of an excuse for oneself and kind of a truism, but sometimes those things are also both correct.
Yeah. That reminds me though, because that's right where earlier in that paragraph, he says, Jackie Shipman, I had another piece of evidence in the text for the interpretation that Matt wrote the whole novel. And it is that in this chapter, when he talks about all the other characters in the book, he refers to them differently than in all their own books or in other ways that we see them. So like self-consciously creating a gap between the Matt chapters and the other chapters so that we're more impressed, right, with the effort, right? That like he's like not winking, he's not letting on, even in the end, that like he knew them all, he knew who they were all along, he knew what they had done all along. He, knew about them all along and so on, right? We get the 6 degrees only referred to by their last names, which we've almost seen never except like in this book, right? We didn't know any of their last names in any of Shane's chapters, right? Nope. And then we get Jacqueline Shipman, which at first I was like, huh? Oh. And then like Keeper doesn't have a name in this chapter, but he's referenced.
He sure is referenced. Like, and perhaps telling that that's the most oblique reference.
Yeah.
And we know from the previous chapter that the FBI algorithmic shit after the like big 6 degrees attack got him wrong.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and they say here too, Coral says, this part was chilling to me too and made me sad for him all over again. For Keeper. Right. He asks like, why couldn't they stop him? Right. Oh, so this is on 852. The bomber was actually profiled by an identity prediction analysis when he was in the system. That makes a reconstruction easy because his behavioral data was always being collated. So why couldn't you stop him? They shrugged. The guy was never deemed a threat. That's why they used him. Right. So 6 degrees knows what Coral knows. Right. And they know.
Which is true because of Tinkerbell.
Yes. Yes. And they know that like, that he's going to be all over the system, but that he's not going to come up as a threat. And so that's why they use him. It's just like his pawnness,
And Keeper asks a question about that, right? He asks Tarney about that in this final chapter.
Yeah. So I guess that's the part that we'd have to do the most piecing together. Like, how does Matt get to a place in his life where he can like enter into Keeper's psyche? And but maybe that's why it's in the second person. Maybe that's why it is so psychoanalytic and so religious, right? Like the only way he can render Keeper human and like sympathetic and where you root for him is if he's like actively grappling with his like moral failures in a like minute to minute sense. And like, that's what makes him a good character in a novel where he does a bad thing, right?
Lots of them. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, right. Yeah.
Yeah.
A life of bad things that culminates in one
glorious, ostensibly terrible redemption. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Apocalyptic redemption. Yeah. Do you want to? Is there anything else?
This chapter fucked with me too.
Really? I really also enjoy our pre-show banter of like, what is there to say about this chapter really? And we haven't even talked about like the aftermath of the 6 degrees attacks, the blockades of Seventh Day, the global transformation, the domestic transformation, like all of that.
Yeah.
The like mass polar ice cap projects. Like
those are crazy.
Paging Ministry for the Future. That's all I'm going to say.
That's next for me.
in multiple ways.
But also, okay, so on 863, when we start learning about that stuff, the sentence that opens that made me laugh so hard. They borrowed a name Kate Morris first devised to shut down gas stations and political offices. The Seventh-day protests, though they had little to do with the 7th of each month. They borrowed a name Kate Morris first devised.
But I mean, there's so much Kate in like just those couple of pages, right?
Yeah.
So we are the Deluge.
Hello.
We're here. Like Kate Morris is alive and wild. Her image is everywhere. Justice for Kate, like in Norway, the global revolt, like all of that shit. Once again, Kate is the main character of the Deluge at the end as well, despite being dead for over 100 pages at this point.
That reminds me that the New York Times article I read opens with the Louis XV, après nous le déluge. Yeah. Mm-hmm. I was like, oh my God, we get it, New York Times. Okay, the other thing that I thought was hysterical.
That was a name. I don't know if I ever voiced this to you under consideration for this podcast was like, après moi, le podcast.
Oh, that's really good. But the other thing that person didn't like is like all of his like winky, like fake, journalism, which I thought was a hysterical thing for a journalist not to like in this novel.
Yeah.
Like there's so many people too. And maybe what's kind of clever about this Matt chapter is that like, this is where like Markley does so much calling out of different kinds of people, whether that's people who, hold certain views, people who have particular orientations or absences of orientation to climate crisis, people who like have certain jobs, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And like, this is a chapter that's really like both a call out and also a justification for the writer, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. What do you make of the mantra, Kate Morris is alive and wild?
It's a little bit of cruel irony in the sense that in the Monitsa profile of Kate Morris, which is just, again, it's, it's a great conceit of this novel that Monitsa also becomes Matt's wife at the end. They named their baby Stanton Farooki, though, so that's a good male ally move by our boy, Matt. But anyway, that like Kate talks about how even she's sick of the celebritization of politics, and like she's sick of Greta and AOC, and that comes for Kate too. But there's something about Kate's symbology that makes it so that her celebritization leads to mobilization in a different way than the climate celebrities that she is sick of, 15 years earlier in the chronology of this novel or whatever.
Right. Which would maybe explain Matt's choice to not give her a POV.
Yes. I mean, Matt already said, right, the AI knows her better than he does.
Yeah. And so like she, in this novel, this is cheesy, but like she doesn't actually die.
I think that's 100% the case.
Yeah. Which is like the opposite for Keeper, the opposite for Murdoch, the opposite for Tony, right?
Right. So many people who definitively and like vibrantly die.
Yeah. Yeah. Man. Is there anything that's like glaringly missing from our discussion?
I don't know. It's in some way, I think, amusing and part of our bit and our conceit that like we're just not going to talk about the like mass political transformation of the United States and the world. And I'm fine with that.
Yeah. I mean, I guess it's like...
It's ashes and it's like half ash, half Amenziao.
Yeah.
Half U.S. imperial state.
Right. Which tempers it, like how dramatically it is actually a refiguring of the nation.
There's one very specific question that I wanted to ask you in the context of that. So this is like the bottom of 867. New governments had come to power calling for radical reimagining of the world order, civic rebirth, where for decades people have stared numbly at screens. And then here's the line I wanted to ask you about.
Yeah.
Feminist collectives in formerly vicious misogynistic societies. Like, doesn't that mean all of them? What is Matt I think I know what Matt envisions there, but like, that's the line that most echoes Monitza be having some lady problems because she's pregnant.
Yeah. Feminist collectives in formerly misogynist societies, obviously. Yeah.
and especially because didn't he witness via Kate, like what a violently misogynistic society did to her, to Kate, right. Like the person that he loved.
Right. It seems like, okay, it's a way to both shoehorn in his like ally creds, right? Like This is one of the features of the world now, but it's also, I think, a bit of a like, maybe there's something, what's the right word there? It's not like a wink, it's not a prank, but it's like maybe where Markley's like actually like ceding some ground, right? Like if he's Matt there, he's like, this is just where I lose the plot, right? Like this is the limit. This is the limits of me. Like,
he hasn't like read a bunch of social reproduction theory. That's come out in the last 10 years or something.
Yeah, he's like, well, whatever. I lost the plot there, but that's fine.
But
I think also to like return to the kind of eco-feminist maybe like critique of the novel, or like an ecofeminist critique of the novel, is that like if gender, and sexual like liberation is not like coextensive with ecological liberation, like we shouldn't expect and so on and so on and so on, right? Like we shouldn't expect the next iteration of the world to like have solved all the problems, right? And so like for him to say like feminist collectives have replaced misogynist societies, it's like, okay, well there's obviously going to still be struggle over how we organize, right? Like reproductive labor and productive labor, and like those aren't just going to disappear overnight because like everyone was like, crap, Hurricane Kate like really clued us into like how vulnerable we are, infrastructurally or whatever, right? Like, I don't know.
Which is one of the things that recommends that 10-page blitz of years that go by in Leah's birthdays, which is Matt is simultaneously presenting the rosy and the extremely unfinished picture.
Right.
Because what are we going to do about solar radiation management? Like there's extinction and food and hunger and disease and heat and extreme storms, all of that continuing. Like, good case scenario is 2.3 degrees of warming stabilizing. Still pretty bad. We're still getting sea level rise 1.19 inches a year, like all of that kind of stuff. It's not ending.
But he also lets himself off the hook a little bit, right? He's like, well, there are no historical analogies really, so I can kind of make up whatever.
Yeah.
Like feminist collectives, duh. Like this is unprecedented, so
Yeah, I did, and I really liked some of the future casting that did happen here, like your olivine buildings and statues and stuff, and like living algae walls, and the statue of Kate in Cleveland. Shouts to our favorite Clevelander, Amy Schiller. Vindicated in the end about her views on Cleveland. Yeah. New national capital.
Yeah, well, because it's like a low-tech, non-tech infrastructure, right? It like involves technology, but it's not, it has like a grassroots dimension to it. And it's like not so high tech that it's like elite only.
Yes, I think that's right. Which fits the it's not like quite socialist paradise because there's this like orgy of entrepreneurship, right? That also exists at the same time. And I think that's, another way in which we see Markley gesturing in the direction of complicating the projected future.
Complicating the happy ending.
Supreme Court still fucked. That's, that rings true.
Okay, I think my favorite sentence in this whole chapter is on 870.
Oh, I know exactly. So let's head into millennial comedy because this is also in my category for that.
In the unlikely event I ever get the courage to publish, I'm aware this book will be riddled with offenses.
Not wrong.
That is hysterical.
It is, especially on the heels of now all the talk is how wrong it is to identify a person based on any nationality, ethnicity, race, gender, sexual orientation, religion, or imagined community. Calling someone she, American, trans, Black, or Catholic is suddenly frowned upon. According to the social scientists, it's an attitude grown out of virtual reality and the masking of identity that the format makes possible. The older generation really hates this. This becomes an excruciating exercise to form a basic sentence describing an individual's features and background.
Hysterical. It's so funny.
Yeah. It's really, really funny. And it's also very theory funny, millennial funny.
Yeah.
What else do you have for our millennial comedy?
Let's see.
AI is ruining the book industry. Very funny. Yeah, page 850.
Mm-hmm. I like when he projects that Elia will begin to read about her parents' generation. She will no doubt go down a rabbit hole about this period from the 2010s through the 30s.
So she's going to read the Deluge. Yeah. Uh-huh.
It's so funny.
Love it. Have your cake and eat it too, my guy. Yeah.
I like a lot of my LOLs are about those meta comments, like the horror with no conclusion.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yep. I really enjoyed at the bottom of page 859, and like this is, you know, as the son of a father moments for me.
Yeah.
He monkeyed with the GPS and batted a hand at me. No, you stay here. Your mom and Mo need you to be calm. You know, if I get swept away, Mo will probably pray thanks to Vishnu. Unbelievably, he winked at me. It's a really hilarious but great moment.
It's so funny.
Hilarious and great. I don't know why I'm not just both handing that one.
Yeah. It's so good. What other ones did I have? I mean a lot of the back and forth between Matt and Coral was chuckly.
Yes.
You know, they like still have their jokes and
they still have the banter.
Mm-hmm.
Coral was real about the story about their dad, and whereas we, the reader, had gotten actually they were talking not just about Kate but about themselves to Matt. Now it's like Matt gets to know, unless he was the author of the earlier chapters, that they were also talking about themselves when they told that to Matt, that story about their dad. Yeah.
Okay, so this is maybe not funny, but it did make me laugh out loud. He makes Amy Coney Barrett the Chief Justice.
I know. It actually is. I laughed too. I have to say. I could not tell a lie.
It's so funny. I like, God. Also, my conspiracy theory.
Okay.
I told you this already. I texted it to you. We learned that on 845 that 3 months after the 38 midterms, the CEO of one of the major pharma companies was gunned down outside his home. So my hot take, my conspiracy theory is that Luigi read this book.
Wow. Yeah. Well, there's like that moment. There's also the kind of eerie way in which the description of the guy who kills Kate and everybody else who's working at Seventh, or almost everybody else who's working at Seventh Day, like parallels some of the shit that like we do and don't know about the person who killed Charlie Kirk.
Yeah, it's really odd, actually.
Eerie
and even the discourse too, that like everyone becomes kind of like obsessed with him and who he was and like why was he obsessed with her and like that. Yeah, that like kind of macabre interest in like the killer and like what drives the killer to kill or whatever, what makes the killer. I think those are all the things I have.
Should we title this episode?
Yeah. Okay. I did something potentially ethically suspect.
I can't wait. I think that means you go first.
Okay. I asked Gemini.
Allowed, permitted.
I asked Gemini to come up with a mock
Tell us the prompt,
title for an episode of a podcast about the Deluge that is discussing the last Matt chapter and that makes fun of the fact that of the introduction of the AI. It gave me 7 options.
What's the best and what's the worst? I think we need to hear.
So, but the other thing that was really funny, because I had it on like deep thinking mode, is that it gave me, it was like, do you want it to be, and I said in the style of a long form. So it was like long form, headings are often stylized as like subject and then something else and blah, blah, blah. And then, so it gave me some titles and then explained the focus and the mockery.
Oh, no. This is terrifying to me.
It's insane. Okay, so the one that I thought was the funniest is the archive of the heart. Hold on finding the complete and utter coherence of her absence in a single perfect algorithmic text.
Okay, well, clearly that's the episode title.
And then this is its explanation. This title specifically mocks the high-minded language of archives, coherence, and perfection being applied to the artificial, potentially AI-generated book about grief.
Oh my God, talk about your ghost in the machine.
The one that made no sense is this. After the quiet an inventory of Matt's unmade bed and the epistemological tyranny of closure. So let me read it to you.
Okay.
The focus and the mockery.
We definitely maybe have said epistemological whatever of closure, tyranny of closure. Like, it's possible we said those words at some point in the past 2 years.
Okay, hold on. This is the explanation. Mocks the blend of mundane domestic detail, unmade bed, with dense academic philosophical language, epistemological tyranny, to describe the AI providing closure.
God damn it. They got us. It got us.
Okay, I won't read you all of them, but maybe I'll send them to
you. I'm interested. We'll put them on the Instagram. At DelugeCast. I have the years of swallowing the earth itself.
Ooh, that's good.
I think for meta reasons, maybe that can be the title for the next one, and we use the AI one for this one.
The archive of the heart on finding the complete and utter coherence of her absence in a single perfect algorithmic text. Just like sent me. Oh my God.
Oh God.
Anyway, sorry I did that.
No, I support it actually in a surprise, in a twist of our own at the end.
I know.
Of We Are the Deluge, near the end of We Are the Deluge.
Oh.
Up next, we got more Matt 5.
Yes. Until ? Yeah. From 2020. What year is it? 5 to ?
Yeah. Exactly.
Oh, great. Well, thank you for joining us on one of our lasts. We are the Deluge.
And we are, for now, the Deluge.